is a single pane of glass that brings visibility and actionable intelligence to our organization. It is literally the one single entity that you can go to find and solve all of your problems. What we're searching for here, or looking for you to be able to do, is not be able to log into various different systems, but have all of these systems communicate to FortiSIEM, and then from FortiSIEM, you are then able to perform all of your queries, and so forth and so on. Just a little bit of a high-level view of this. FortiSIEM, the cluster up here is divided into super and workers. There are collectors that we have distributed around every single district, and that collector then is a single point of contact for all of your devices to communicate to, which then ships it up to super. The capabilities of FortiSIEM include intelligent discovery, so it will fetch and catch data. We fetch the data through WMI, SNMP, SDX, and a lot of other protocols that can be used for it. And then SNMP traps and syslogging can actually then be caught by FortiSIEM. It has analytic capabilities. We can do historical searches. We can do real-time searches based upon simple or more complex queries. It is an alerting and notification and reporting. So if you have something, maybe a server go down or your network go down, alerts can be automatically fired to whoever we designate will get those alerts, and you'll be notified instantly on that. Incident management, you can then delve further into incidents, and we have a use case where we can show that. And then finally on that is a configuration management database. Now this is actually a very unique feature of the SIEM. Other SIEMs do not have this capability, but we can actually back up configurations of devices that are known as managed devices. But more than all of that, FortiSIEM brings actionable intelligence. This is information that we want to provide to you that you are actually able to take action on. This is not just, oh, that was nice information. This is something that you can actually take action on. It empowers the users to solve problems. Yesterday in Simon's presentation, he said, we need to figure out what our ask is. Why are we asking this question? And so it's going to allow the districts and CO working with other divisions within IT to, before you can go and ask whoever the subject matter expert is, to figure out exactly what your issue might actually be. So if there's a network problem, FortiSIEM is going to be able to help you answer that question if it might be a network or a server issue, and direct you to the person that you may need to go to. Or you might very well figure out your issue before you even have to ask anyone. It's efficiency to the troubleshooting process. It's a single pane of glass. You don't need to log into various systems. You need one system. It reduces incident times because of that. And then thus, going from there, it's going to increase customer satisfaction because you're resolving cases a lot faster.
Okay, where's the malware? So we used to have our own EPO server, but we no longer have access to that. We no longer have access to OIT's McAfee server, so therefore we have to find other ways of obtaining the information we're looking for. What we do is we pull logs from DOT servers, and then a custom parser is written to normalize the information for us to better read.
So when we're looking at malware and we're looking to pull this, so as Tyler mentioned, we pull these logs from central locations, correct? We no longer have access to OIT's EPO server. So on that, where we're pulling these malware logs, right? Everyone sees those reports. Malware has been on your PC. Everything's a Trojan, correct? Everything is critical mass. We're actually getting that from the DOT PDQ-02 server that ECT has. Those logging messages are actually coming across, and we have a custom parser that is then written that we can extrapolate that information. FortiSIEM out of the box already is able to interpret multiple different systems, but we can write custom parsers to then draw out that information that we need. So if you need something, a specific piece of information about a device, we are able to write that and give you that information. So along with just getting those malware alerts, the infectious data central, this goes back to the single pane of glass concept that I have. So we can then correlate web logs, firewall logs, NetFlow data, and all of that to be able to give more enriched information about the whole process. Go to the next slide. So here's an example of this. So the output that you see on the screen right here is actually data that we use in analytics to search for a user that had accessed personal Gmail from their O.work computer, and then so lovingly then opened up a Google Docs document that then downloaded a SNIFF making Trojan down to our network. So not to get too specific into the case, but from here you can see that in the data that we were able to export to a CSV file that we have a web request successful. That's coming from the iron port. Iron port's giving us that information. We have the IP address, so we have DHCP information that is in here as well. We can see the source host name, the destination that they were communicating to. If you look up here at the destination host name, the 0.docs.google.com, that is proof that the user opened up that file. So we have all this correlation, this enriched data that we can have from all the sets. Now, if you just go back, just one. When we look at these malware incidents, we want to be able to quickly identify these things, correct? We don't want this malware, if it is in fact a real case, something that needs to be taken care of, to knock that off the network. We need to be able to find it quickly. Now, you can do this other ways. I'm sure Greg knows you can log into a switch. If you know your IP addresses, you can ping the device. You can do a show ARP and then correlate that with the show MAC address and pipe the MAC address in there. Or you can just do location identity, which is based upon L2 scans. These L2 scans are based upon DHCP logs, VPN logs, web proxy data, and all of this, and it will show where the switch port access is. If you would go to the next screen there, the next one, Tyler, please. As you can see up here, we have a malware incident that's been triggered, and we have an IP address. Mr. Bobby Clicker, he has malware reported on it, and in the right part of the screen, you see location identity being given. Now, what do I see here? I see his IP address, I see the MAC address, and I see exactly the switch port that he's connected to. The fact that I can find this so quickly means that I can engage access on that switch and I can kill that port immediately. That's a lot faster than me having to figure out where the switch is in the state of Ohio and then getting down to it and having the port killed. So this is some of the power with the L2 scans. These L2 scans, they occur every 8 hours. So about 3 times a day, we get all of this data. Another incident that I had with this that actually helped me out, it's not malware related, but I had NWAS show up to me and one of their DMP panels, it wasn't working. And the manufacturer said, the problem's not us, and the guy came to me and he's like, well, we know it's not you, for whatever the reason he said. Well, I'm like, well, let me help you out. I log into FortiSIEM, I plug in the IP address real quickly and location I did it just to verify that's where it was. And in fact, the IP address that he gave me showed up on another port on my switch, not my garage switch where the DMP panel was. Therefore, I knew I had a duplicate IP situation. I was able to identify that very quickly, and then I was also able then to resolve the issue by giving it in its correct IP designation and reserving that IP address so it doesn't get eaten up again.
Question for you. You would have to call the NOC to figure that out.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Most generally, we would have to get a hold of the NOC to give us that information. And not to, say they're not useful anymore or not, but this is going to save them time and focusing their attention to more things that are better for their time. And it helps us out as well. That wasn't a knock at the NOC, by the way. So, can you go to the next slide, Tyler? That's just kind of a general overview of how we were using it with the security incidents and so forth. From here on out, these are more district-specific things that we can give you. So, VPN access denied. Next slide, please, Tyler. When you log into FortiSIEM, the first thing that then you should encounter are dashboards. Now, dashboards give you an active current state of your network. We can customize these dashboards. We can whatever you want. So for instance, a stock dashboard, at my district, I have the latency time going between all of my county switches and SOC router 1, right? So I can see if I got a circuit that's going down. I can see if there is high latency that is involved there. I can see, even on the server side, I can see disk latency time if I wish. I can see how much this space is being eaten up by all of that. So the dashboard, it just gives you a nice area for you to just get a nice glance of your network. But one of these dashboards describes VPN access. And as you can see up there, it pinpoints failures and allows us to be more proactive. There was a user that we had, newly hired. He was a bridge specialist too, and he needed access to the VPN. I happened to be looking at my dashboards at the time, and he showed up. Now, this is not his screenshot. I just kind of grabbed this. But you can see step 2 and step 3 here of these dashboards. It specifically identifies where the cause of failure is. I don't have to troubleshoot all this. It tells it for me. There's not this lengthy process of engaging different people. This is just me looking at a dashboard, getting this information. And step 2, you see, did Duo fail? Is the user enrolled in Duo, or are they locked out? That's basically what those outcomes are. Step 3 is, are they authorized in Active Directory? Now, this is where my user showed up. He didn't call me. I saw he was there. I knew he was a new hire, and he showed up there. We just simply forgot to add him in there. So I quickly added him in there. I called him up, and I said, hey, I see you've been trying to access the VPN, and you didn't have access. I just granted it to you. And then he was like, thank you. It makes it very creepy for people when you call them out of the blue and say, hey, I see you are doing such and so. I took care of it for you. Now, good for them, but when you're on the other side of Big Brother, sometimes that's not really that fun. Simon likes to joke sometimes whenever we call users, just be like, hey, Tom, took care of your problem. Just don't go to that website again. What website? You know what I'm talking about. So, but that helped to reduce the ticket. There was no help desk call that was going on. That was a proactive approach, and that's what that helps us do. Next slide. You want to take this one?
Okay, so we're starting to get into some of relevant stories for the districts here. This one is called Mastering Fuel Master Issues. So basically, something happened in District 7. We were having issues with our Champaign County garage. Let me advance here. And this, the top picture there, that is, we have a large TV display in our office with some dashboard reports on it, and this is one of them. And it's not the exact incident, but I just took a screenshot for reference. But Champaign County was having some issues. We were seeing the average packet loss up near 90% every morning that we were coming in for 2 or 3 days a week, something like that. So we're like, hey, let's run a report for a couple weeks and see if this is consistent enough to go on site and take a look at it. So we went ahead and ran a report and confirmed that it was going down about the same time every morning. So I made a trip to the site, did some testing, took a look at the antenna that was on the building, and it looked to be like one of the original installs. And now we have better antennas that can take care of the wireless issues. So I got a hold of the network team, asked if they had any the new omnidirectional antennas in stock, and they did. So they sent me one, went out to the site another day, installed it, and we haven't had an issue since. The bottom picture here is just showing you the actual, when you actually run the report. The top one is the dashboard, and then if you actually run that dashboard report, this is what you get, some of the results. And it's sorted by average packet loss. So the top FMUs that are having issues will show up at the top.
All right. So that basically gives you a nice snapshot and overview of the dashboard. It's a nice area. We can customize those dashboards for you. When we get into training, we can get more into that. So moving on from the dashboard, we then have analytics. And this is pretty much the powerhouse of FortiSIEM. This allows you to drill down and be able to get down to specific sets of data after casting a wide net. We can then dive deep into it. So in this story, it was an interesting incident. Microsoft, as we know, always helps everything and makes it better. As you can see, in Windows 10, they have finally fixed everything, as the picture says. I had a problem with my Brown County garage, and I'll show you the alerts right here. So right here in my email, I got some notifications about my Brown County garage being down. Very high saturation that was involved there. And as I drill down into analytics, right here I can see, so this is that report from my dashboard. I drilled down from that. I didn't have to rewrite the query. I just drilled right down to the report that was already made. And I see right here that I'm on SOC router 1, gig 103.244, that my Brown County garage, its saturation is 99.95%. Now that's high. That's really high. And that's pretty much crippling my entire network. So I was keyed off on that. And so these alerts set precedent for me, as the point goes, that I didn't need to look for this. I was told it was happening. Told it was happening. So the alert fired, an instant notification that my email is associated with, it shot out to me. I knew something was going on. Dashboards, as we've already given, they assess the situation. We've already covered that with Master and Fuel Master, and in the previous story with the VPN lockout account. So from here then, I then was able to go to analytics for the root cause. These are the points to remember on this. And so this is high saturation. So I began looking. So if my saturation is really high, I'm like, well, I need to start doing some net flow analysis. And so I rewrote the query. You can kind of see it right up here. So you can see that the system device is a router and switch. The event type is iOS NetFlow. Now, you can have one or two options. I won't go into detail right now. You can either know the attributes you're looking for and write them in, or a lot of times the reports will give them to you and you can just add the filter and it does it all for you. So you don't need to know everything. But right here, this is what was interesting. And this is what actually was confusing me. None of this data to me seems extraordinarily high. And so it was kind of hard for me to find a culprit. So I call Simon and I'm like, Simon, I'm doing a net flow analysis here. I'm not really seeing any large data passing through. That should be a problem. And he made a good observation, and that is, well, we're not looking for single large bits of data. It's the fact that there is just so much volume of all this little data that is going on. And we then tweaked the report just a little more, and we added this destination TCP UDP port, 7680. You know who owns the port 7680? Microsoft. A little bit of digging, we found out that this is actually Microsoft's delivery optimization protocol. Microsoft's optimization killed my network. So what the protocol is supposed to do on Windows 10 devices, and I then engaged shortly thereafter Daryl and asking him, and I think Alex was on the phone, and maybe it was Wally, I don't remember which one, about the situation and asking. Well, this comes stock with Microsoft, and basically what it does is instead of having updates from a central repository, if a computer on the network has updates that others do not, it then will begin to give those updates out. It will hand them out. And we was actually seeing District 11 computers that was involved. There was District 5 computers, District 8 that was getting this update. Now, normally this is a good protocol, but the problem was that the client computer that began acting as a server was on a Brown County circuit, which is 10 megs. And so because all that data was churning out and updating all the patches on these PCs across the state, it choked my network to death. And so ECT then very quickly thereafter, they shut the protocol down. And I think they were looking at some other implementations on that. Greg?
Quick question for you. Can you explain what NetFlow is for some of the people who don't necessarily know what NetFlow is?
All right, so Greg's testing my knowledge now.
I mean, just high level.
Yeah, so NetFlow, if I remember correctly, it's giving us session data, right? So we're looking at a flow of traffic. When you look at network traffic, you know, we look at it in terms of flows. From the client to the server, that's a single flow of information. And from then the server back to the client, that's a second flow of information. And you can really get a lot of information about this basic IP address, bytes, so forth and so on, to see how your traffic is moving. Session data is actually very important to correlate with firewall logs, and it's very useful. Is that good enough for you, Greg?
Yeah,
okay.
Just trying to give everybody
A little bit of context. That's good. Thank you. So that's what happened here. And you can see the computers I was talking about. So here's District 9, here's District 11, District 8, District 6. This single PC was updating all these PCs across the network. Now, the other reason why I love this story so much is I think it was around 8 a.m. or something like that when I discovered this, when I saw the alert. The resolution for this was 1 hour. It was 1 hour from the alert to the solution that we found it, and we was able to engage other teams in it by giving relevant data and context through FortiSIEM. And so that's what we're talking about when we're wanting to diminish incident times, to improve customer satisfaction. My network was back up and running because of that. Going further on with analytics, looking at this case, sniff out the lockout. It's never good when the admin is locked out. Can we all agree with that? Not to put my boss on the spot, but he was locked out. And particularly his Z account was. That's partially my fault, so I will take the blame. Give it a little context with the story on this, and it is, there was some malware that was found on my facilities manager's PC. My boss's Z account was associated with the executable. I then told him he needs to reset his passwords. And he had me log into the server at the time, which then locked him out. I'll show you some more pictures here. So simple searches and analytics will actually get you further than just starting out complex. Simon likes to emphasize to us, we start simple and then we grow. We don't want to narrow in and just start looking for the nitty-gritty thing. Let's just start simple, cast a wide net and all this. Analytics allows us to do this. Correlation gives us multiple devices to look at. We keep emphasizing that. And filters then within those reports help us to keep drilling down even further. So as we can see in this screenshot right here, this is after I've drilled down a little bit into it. We see that we got this WinSecurity 4740. The event name is a user account was locked out, and I see that the source host is my file server. I see up here that my query is pretty simple, just Z_G_Toller, and the event type WinSecurity 4740. Now I only found the event type because it showed up in my display filters, and then I just simply clicked the drop down, popped it up, and I got this. And this is how I figured it out and pinned it all together on that. FortiSIEM allowed me to do that. I didn't have to engage anyone else on that. I didn't have to call any higher teams. I, as a district tech, was able to find that because of FortiSIEM. And so because I had forced my boss to change his password, he hadn't logged out of the server session. Well, his server session then had an RDP client that then was trying to re-authenticate with Kerberos ticketing system, and it kept locking him out because it kept polling every now and again. Well, once I saw that this was the issue, I logged onto the server, I saw his user account, I disconnected his session, and he was all good after that. So we're able to sniff out lockouts, we're able to do net flow analysis. It's a very powerful tool. How many of you have ever gotten a request, the internet's broken or this website's blocked? That happens actually quite frequently, and it's actually happened more. I've got actually 2 website domains that I have to look into. I'll be using FortiSIEM for this to unblock. Because there are times that users legitimately, they have a business need, and for whatever reason that website's blocked. Now there's reasons for that. There are certain websites that are just found in IP blocks that we just automatically blacklist, right? And so when we find that there is a website that's just in these IP blocks, we then have to find out the IP address, normally a NOC responsibility. Again, not trying to steal your guys' jobs, but it allows us to just get to the data a lot quicker. So in this case, we're able to fetch data from the iron port, or the iron pony, as some people like to designate it. Tony Stark is here to help you. We can identify specific blocked IPs, domains based on simple user domain search, and then we can export those results to a CSV file, which you saw earlier. Why would I want to export to a CSV? Well, there can be a lot of data and a lot of web traffic about a user. A lot. And when you export it to a CSV, this allows us to filter the data a lot quicker. Right? We can find exactly what we're searching for without going through pages and pages of reports within the system itself. So I've had a couple cases in this. Realtor.com, me and Tyler worked on that. You could get to the website, but the pictures were blocked. Why were the pictures blocked? Well, the pictures were blocked because the pictures exist on a different server with a different IP address on the web. Your websites are not just a single IP address. It is literally a home of multiple IPs that exist on that single web page. If you want to go to a news website, it will literally blow your browser up if you could see all the network and all the different IPs that connect to it. It's absolutely ridiculous. In fact, I think it probably consumes more data than YouTube whenever you visit these sites. But in this case, I had an invoice that was not showing up by my auditing department from Neopost. We just had a new stamp machine put in, and they were unable to pay. They could get to the website, but the invoice was not showing up. We did some testing. We could access it on a non-ODOT network. Using FortiSIEM, then, we can easily see right here from this report that the web request server failed. I can see that the server was neoapi.neopost.com. That is not the name of the website, so it's a different domain. And I got the IP address right there. From then, now that I have this data, I can attach this report. I can put in a ServiceNow ticket. I can send it to the NOC. And I believe it was Todd who then picked that incident up really quickly. He had all the information he needed to get onto the firewall and add this to the internet whitelist. Greg.
Question for you. How did you structure your query to find that data?
So query, again, going with simple searches, it wasn't that complex of a query. Basically what I did was we do a reporting IP and we point that at the iron port. So if there is a device that is out there, server, iron port, wherever you want to get that data from, right? Wherever a lot of that data is flowing through, we want that central point. So in this one, it's reporting IP equals iron port, or the security gateways, because obviously you have iron port 1, 2, and 3 is the one I think with the management interface on there. And then I just simply did an and in the query, destination host name, and I put that in there. You can also start up the query just simply by user and looking at their web traffic is how you can put that in there, which actually, no, I think that's how I began that and then looked at destination host name. So you look at user equals and then who your user is. And all their data, all their iron port logs then begin to show, and you can just begin skimming through there, and then you can start looking at, okay, where is there a web server request failed? Because I already know I'm looking at Neopost, right? So you can set your display filters right there. Very simple searches, and then augment display filters.
So you did iron port and then the source IP address of the user in this case, and then you kind of just skim through there.
Yeah. Well, actually, in this case, I did it from the username itself. So with the username, then their IP address is also correlated because iron port's looking at users, right? Users to domains. That's what we're seeing in all of that. And then you can drill down further from there. I had another interesting case out of Adams County. I got a switch, FortiSIEM, it just keeps dying. And I'm like, okay, well, the only thing I really know what to do, because everything else seems fine with it, is I'm going to replace the switch. I called the NOC, and Jeremiah Brozier, he so kindly sent me a switch. I said I can configure it. And how did I configure it? FortiSIEM. If you remember correctly, I said this is one of the distinct, unique features of FortiSIEM, is it actually keeps device configuration. So, as I said before, it stores configuration. You can even restore configurations from the FortiSIEM database. In fact, more than that, and this would be more, you know, for the NOC and looking at firewalls and you know, all the core switches and stuff, if there's been a change made that's causing havoc on the network, you can diff those configs. It keeps multiple configurations, and you can diff those configurations, see what changes actually have been made to help resolve your issue faster, as I can say there. So here's the switch that I replaced. I go to my CMDB, my configuration management database. There's the switch I was looking for. Oh. And right here are all the configurations, and I can see it right there. I copy and pasted that, put that right into the switch, and other than configuring my SSH keys, my crypto keys, that's all I had to do. I deployed it, I hooked it up, I was done. So, and we can do that with anything. I believe Wally and Greg were having a conversation about ASAs, the new ones that are coming out, backing up their configurations. This would be a great point for that. It's a good business case. The original story on this, as I told Russ, was endpoint computing, or endpoint, shut down my server, ... a Russ Maple story. Because what basically happened here, and Russ is correct in everything he did, like so many of the stories that they began with, there was an alert that was fired. And when that alert was fired, he saw that his server was down. But when he checked on the server, it was up and working. When an alert fires in FortiSIEM, that means something actually happened, and you should react, and he did so appropriately. But what was interesting about this case, and this shows off the incidents tab, is we see that alerts are firing based upon pattern matches. We can actually make tailored rules within FortiSIEM based upon whatever it is that we're looking for to then fire. The searching is fast and fluid, and the incident tabs and the details can give us the why of why that alert actually fired. In this case, Russ says, I got an alert, my server is down. Okay, let's look at it. But then he followed up with, but now I'm seeing it's up. And so he was kind of curious about this and was inquiring about it. We then go to the incident tab that you find in FortiSIEM itself, and they have this really nice, fluid search database within incidents that allows you to quickly look things up based upon IP, host name, username. It's set default to the last 2 hours, but then you can increase that as well. You can look at all active events, cleared events, so forth and so on. And as you go through here, now this is not the exact incident, I just found this because I didn't take screenshots during the time of it, but what was interesting about this is it was in the raw event log, I believe, or maybe it was a notification. It showed planned shutdown. Now the server in question was a DO5 Management 01 server. Whose domain does the management servers fall under? ECT. If you see a planned shutdown on a server, what does that mean? It means someone shut the computer down for a specific or shut the server down for a reason, restarted it. Daryl knows all about shutting computers off on people. So if your computer ever shuts down randomly, he's got a history of it with his previous boss. In fact, that's kind of where I learned that trick from a little too. Good mentoring there. All right, so what I found here is by looking at the DO5 management server, and the raw event log, it said plant shutdown. So I go over, and I talk to Daryl. Daryl's lucky enough to be annoyed by me because he is near me. I walk up to his cube, and I say, hey, did you guys shut down the DO5 management server? Daryl has no idea what I'm talking about. Alex is on the phone saying, yeah, I did it at 6 a.m. this morning. For whatever the reason, updates, patches, whatever, it was a planned shutdown. It's his domain. He was able to act. But the issue was, Russ saw and got an alert, and he wanted to react to the alert, and he was right for reacting to it. And we can go to the incident tab and see why was it that alert actually fired. And so we was able to get to a solution to figure out what it was. It was a planned shutdown. It was not something that it just randomly occurred. It wasn't a critical event. And so that was very good to have. So right now, Simon's going to come up and talk about I can't access my files dealing with Isilon.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Yeah, I'm going to use this, I guess. So as everyone's aware, files have been migrated to the Isilon, and that took quite a while to happen thanks to efforts of Mike Blake and Alan Grubb. So that's been good that it's been migrated. But Alan had actually started to look into how could he monitor the availability of the Isilon system. And so he's been in FortiSIEM for a while now, and he was exploring, which is what we want people to do. We want you, once you have access to FortiSIEM, to actually explore and see what type of monitors are out there, what type of information can help you make decisions and things along those lines. So Alan and Mike are responsible for Isilon. So Alan said, hey, how can we find out if the Isilon is down? So there's some built-in Isilon monitors. And so he's trying to configure the monitor, and the Isilon is an OIT asset, and it's not working. And so he asked me about it. And I said, well, Alan, it's awesome you're trying to do this, but we actually don't have access to monitor the Isilon ourselves. That is an OIT-owned asset, and we don't have credentials to monitor the Isilon from the ODOT network. We would have to ask them to create an SNMP string or something along those lines, and I highly doubt that they're going to do that for us. So he said, Simon, what are the options? And what I want to talk about in this particular business case is one of the wonderful things about FortiSIEM, and I've been using it for about 8 years now, is that if you can generate a log, if you could write a log entry to the Windows event log, if you can write it to a text file, or if you can create a PowerShell script and have that PowerShell script use syslog, then those modalities can be used to get data into FortiSIEM. And that's exactly what we did. So Alan knows that there is a PowerShell commandlet that will reach out and open up a file over the network. And it basically returns true or false. So true, I could access the file. False, I could not access the file. And this PowerShell script runs from the ODOT side of the network, goes out through our firewalls, out into OIT land, opens up the file. Hopefully it opens up the file. If it doesn't open the file, we'll all know about it, because that's where all our data resides. But his script writes the true-false status via syslog, which is just a simple system logging protocol that runs over UDP. That message gets sent from his PowerShell script into FortiSIEM, and then we wrote a custom parser, which was super simple. I am going to be looking for people who are interested in writing parsers. I imagine Mr. Dots would be interested in doing something like that, perhaps. Nod your head slowly, Mike. There we go. All right. Alan has actually written a parser himself, and if I'm not mistaken, Alan wrote the parser for this Isilon test. Is that correct, Alan? Yeah. So Alan's a smart guy. You don't have to be super smart, though, to write these parsers. They're pretty straightforward. So we like to refer to this type of monitor as a synthetic transaction, because it's not a real user doing something. It's actually a process that is synthesizing access to something. So this is a synthetic transaction that runs via PowerShell. The output of that is then written into FortiSIEM, and then we parse it. So this is incredibly hard to see, but the parsing language looks rather XML-ish with a mix of JavaScript. It's incredibly easy to understand. And then once the parser's written, you can see Alan named this, the event type is the Isilon share check. And it includes the file path, which is kind of cool. We can actually add multiple file paths that are important. It is possible that a path could be down and one could be up. Who knows what would cause that to happen, but at least we would know within minutes, and you can see that the status is up. From there, Alan writes a notification policy, and then that notification policy can send an email to ServiceNow. Something else to really emphasize with the parser, and this would be the real key takeaway from this slide, if you can log it, If you can write it to the Windows event log, if you can write it to a flat file, or if the data is already written to a flat file, or if you know how to write PowerShell and leverage syslog, we can get it into FortiSIEM. It does not have to be just security data. In this case, it's availability data. It can be business data. We do have other business units that are that write Kronos information and S2 information directly to FortiSIEM, and then that's parsed out using a custom parser, and then PDF reports are sent on a weekly basis to business units. So this, while this is a SIEM and the S stands for security, it's more of an intelligence and analytics engine. Do you guys want me to do this final slide here? Okay. Okay, so I'll go ahead and wrap up with this final slide here. I want to thank Tyler and Nathan personally. We set out probably 2 years ago to identify some folks in the district that would be interested in learning FortiSIEM. And these two fine young men kind of stood up and said, yeah, I want to learn. And you guys knew next to nothing about FortiSIEM, and they've done an incredible job. They are almost single-handedly responsible for getting it deployed, all the collectors, getting everything into the system, and then most importantly, looking at the tool from a district perspective, because our vision for this is that it's not just Tyler and Nathan that can solve problems using the system, but it's every one of you that's interested in solving an IT or even a business-related problem based on the data that's in the system. We believe that the system is simple enough, and we've configured it in a way that will help you solve problems. Sean and Wally posed their 10,000 minute challenge yesterday. I'm not going to steal the 10,000 minute challenge, but there are ways for you to save an incredible amount of time yourself using this system, as well as saving time for other people in that decision tree. So these guys both gave examples of how they were able to find the answer before just by default just shipping off a ticket to somebody else who might otherwise be busy. So this is a great way to start thinking about how you might save that 10,000 minutes. Yes, Daryl?
How many of the districts are set up to where they've got the FortiSIEM dashboard? So
every district has access now. We have at least 2 people per district, I think, are configured. Some people are using it more than others. But Daryl, what I want to talk about right here is starting in the 3rd week of this month, the 3 of us are going to go out across the state, and we've divided the districts up, and we are going to do on-site training, maybe 2 to 4 hours, just side-by-side training with the district IT staff to make sure everybody understands how to use it and how to take advantage of it. We'll be sending out a schedule and letting you know which of the 3 of us are going to be doing that. But we really want to solidify not just the access, but how do you use it once you have access. It can be somewhat overwhelming when you first get in, I'll admit that, but we are creating what we would refer to as structures for success, and that means we are writing knowledge base articles for some of the top issues that you may face when you get in. We're also going to work hard to create some videos or some screencasts that show you how to solve problems. I mean, hey, now I'm in, what do I do? Well, we're going to do that with knowledge base articles and videos. And then Greg asked some questions about, well, how did you do that? How did you structure that query? We are and have already created templates inside of the system. So for most of the problems you want to solve, you won't need to write your own query. You'll be able to go into the reports folder and look in what do we call it, common templates? Or yeah, you'll go into common templates, and you'll be able to find, because they're nicely named, you'll find these templates that'll help you be able to solve what we believe, based on our own experience and based on these guys' experience here, what are the common challenges you might need to solve. You will have the ability, though, to take those templates and then customize them, save them as your own template, and then once it's in a template form, you can drop it onto your own dashboard. So every one of you, if you have access, will be able to have your own custom dashboard that gives you your own view into the data that matters to you. So that, I believe, is the wrap for this. Again, I want to thank Nathan and Tyler. They've done a great job so far. And these two are an example of what we want to do across all the districts and empower people to make great decisions and to work efficiently and ultimately help each other out, because time's precious. There are not enough hours in the day to solve some of the problems that we face, and this system is a tremendous help. And we're going to need each other to solve these problems, particularly with the vision that Charles has painted. You've heard about Drive Ohio yesterday. You know, Peter did a wonderful presentation. Judd did Fred did a great presentation about what's happening with unmanned aerial. There's all this really, really cool tech that's coming. That means more tech's going to touch the network. We're going to be logging more information. It's going to be super vital that we have access to that logging data and can discern what these devices are telling us. And we want to be able to do that rapidly. We don't want to miss something critical that's in our log sources. And this is just a great way to consume it in an easy way. So I'm going to stop talking, and I'm going to ask if there's any questions. Bright lights. Any questions? Everybody gets it. Awesome. Thank you. You are dismissed.